Yo, welcome to Six Layers, the comic signature show, period. I'm Mike the Six Slayer, chilling with Mark the Honorable Villain. What up, fam?
What's up, Mike? We got a top tier creator with us. Everybody loves this guy. He keeps on putting out books for the people. Mr. D-Dubs. Let him know, Mike.
Mr. D-Dubs is in the house. Daniel Warren Johnson, man. Can't wait to get into this interview. Before we chop it up with D-Dubs, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment. All right. Our next guest is a multiple Eisner Award winner, creator of Wonder Woman Dead Earth, and co-creator of the current The Moon is Following Us. Ladies and gentlemen of the Stash Land, we bring to you the one and only Daniel, aka D-Dubs, Warren Johnson. What up, man?
It's me. I'm here. This has got some West Coast vibes. I'm into it. Let's go. I got the California sun. I remember. I remember that Long Beach signing. Some good times here. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen, man. I love it. So, since it's your first time joining us, D-Dubs, we like to get your comic book origin story. In other words, how did you get your first gig in pro comics? Oh man, my first ever gig. Do you want to know my first ever gig or the first time I was ever published?
The first time you were ever published.
First time I was ever published was in Shaolin Cowboy issue 3. This is back in like 2013. Remember when Jeff Darrow was working on that Shaolin Cowboy comic, which had like no dialogue? It was all a chainsaw on like a pike, like double chainsaws on like a kung fu stick. You guys remember that?
I think so. I know the book.
It was a long time ago. Yeah, well, so there's been a few different Shaolin Cowboy miniseries at Dark Horse over the years, but he liked my work so much, he's like, will you do a pinup of Shaolin Cowboy for me in the back of an issue somewhere? And I was like, yes, I will do that. So Shaolin Cowboy issue 3 is the first ever time I was published. It was a big deal. I went to the comic book store, flipped all the way to the back of the issue, and there it was. He's fighting some velociraptors, I think. Good times.
And so how did Jeff get a hold of your work?
Jeff, I met him at, there used to be a Comic-Con in Cincinnati called Cincy Comic-Con, and we met there, and he really dug my work. I was just tabling, just trying to get my work out there, trying to get hired, and he loved it so much he asked me there, and I actually found out that he lived a few blocks away from me in Chicago, so we met up for coffee a few times, and he became a friend. Yeah, one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden here I'm doing a pinup for Shaolin Cowboy.
That's awesome, man. Okay, we're still on some early work. We want to talk about Space Mullet and your publication method for that. What gave you the idea to release like the one page at a time for over like a 5-year period?
It was mostly I was trying to figure out again how to get my work out there, how to get noticed, how to get hired. And Tim Seeley, who is also, I'm from Chicago. He's another Chicago guy. I remember I went to a drink and draw where he was at, and I was like, hey, how do I get published, you know? And he's like, you got to pretend like you're getting paid for it before you get paid for it, basically. And so I had to bring kind of that intensity to comics, which I had never really done before in an intentional way. So I found myself hustling and trying to make Space Mullet as good as I could possibly make it, and just stumbling publicly up 2 pages a week for however many years, getting the story out there and not really treating it like a webcomic, where, at least at the time, I don't know what the webcomic scene is like now, but back then there was a lot of like almost like strip style webcomics where it was like a newspaper strip, like every day, different gag. The art wasn't super exciting. So I was trying to bring like a published kind of comic book vibe to the webcomic game and trying to differentiate myself that way, and it worked. Eventually I got noticed, and the Space Mullet pages that I had with me at Cincy Comic-Con were the ones that I showed Jeff Darrow. So one thing kind of led to another, but it took me like pretending like it was a job for me to get the job.
All right, Dan, you're a very independent creator. Can you tell us what it was like collaborating with a writer for your first time with Donny on Ghost Fleet?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we talk about first time published and first gig. My first real gig was with Dark Horse Comics, and I wrote a 16-page short story for an online anthology series called Eve Online. True stories. The spaceship video game. It's a big in I think Eastern Europe, but it's big all over the world. I guess I don't really know much about it, but Daniel Way wrote it, and so I worked off that script, and I never actually talked to Daniel. I just had they sent me a script, and I had to draw it, and they sent me like 3 gigs of reference for all these different ships that I had to draw, which was a nightmare, but I did manage to do it. I got in by the deadline, and I kind of was able to prove myself that way. So when I met Donny, and when we were going to do the Ghost Fleet, it just kind of came down the pipe really fast. I had met Donny over the phone, and we had chatted a few times about maybe a few pitches that we might throw together, but I just reached out to him blind. I loved Buzzkill, which was at Dark Horse at the time. I can't remember if I emailed him or what, but I just emailed him and just shouted him out, being like, hey, I really love Buzzkill. Issue 2 had just come out. I sent him an email saying how much I loved it, and he emailed me back, asked for my phone number. We talked a few days later, and we were coming up with different pitches, and we're both hustling, both trying to make it in comics. And then when his book, The Ghost Fleet, got picked up by Dark Horse, he had an artist that was already on board to draw it, but he backed out at the last minute. So he had a greenlit book with no artist. So he called me up. He's like, do you want to do this? And I was like, I definitely do. So that was like 2013, 2014, early 2014-ish. And actually, it might have been like, yes, I'm sorry. This is like late January 2014 is when I accepted that gig. And working with Donny was amazing. He's a great writer. And his scripts were in no way like overbearing, or it was just really fun, very clear, very, he would get on the phone and he'd just talk my ear off about the vibe that he wanted the Ghost Fleet to have. We were both really trying to prove ourselves. It's not like I was working with a big time writer at the time. Donny and I were on the same level. Just hustle. I'm pretty sure after Ghost Fleet, he took like gigs like doing like the Snickers comics for Marvel. Don't quote me on that, but he was taking some humbling gigs after Ghost Fleet, and so was I. So we still, our time in the sun had not come yet, for sure, and it was good because we were just kind of scrappy and hungry, and we made it happen.
You mentioned that his scripts weren't that dense. What kind of research went into your designs for Ghost Fleet?
Oh man, I did like one round of sketches, and it was tough because Trace and the Ghost Fleet is supposed to be Mexican, so Donny's like, he doesn't look Mexican enough, and I'm like, okay, how do I make him look more Mexican? So that was I remember like that, like kind of being a challenge and trying to figure out how to draw races a little better. So it's good. It stretched me. So I remember that, and then I remember like getting kind of psyched out because I never really drawn cars before. I never really drawn trucks before, and I was like, I guess I better get good at this. I used to draw like big trucks, like a big rectangle, with like the front grill. But if you actually look at like a big rig from the top down, the nose kind of goes in like this a little bit, and then the grill is right there. And I didn't realize that until like I was basically done drawing the book. I was so mad. It's like, I drew it wrong for like 8 whole issues. But now I can draw an amazing big rig. So thank you, Ghost Fleet, for that. Yeah,
you had to learn. You had to learn before you got on Transformers.
Yeah, it was my proto Transformers days.
D-Dub, man, you were nominated for an Eisner for Extremity, a story that you wrote and drew for. What inspired you to go down the avenue of storytelling, both being a writer and an artist? And who were some of your influences as a cartoonist?
Well, after kind of finding a little bit of success with Space Mullet and the Ghost Fleet, I was talking with my wife, and I was like, comics doesn't pay very well, but there's a fair amount of work to be had if once you're in the sphere, you kind of bounce around. Whereas before comics, or during comics really, if I got like a gig doing like, let's say, magazine illustration, which I did a few things, I would do it and the money would be really good, and then there would be no work for like a year, even though like everybody had a great experience, but the art director really liked my stuff, everything went smoothly, but they just didn't need my style, like kind of like line arty style for their graphic design or whatever that often. And I didn't really want to do graphic design full time, so I kind of stumbled into comics that way. Like I found myself really enjoying it, and I felt like, hey, I think I can make this happen. And so after that, I started really thinking about what I wanted my career to look like, and I was taking stock of the artists and writers around me. And it, you know, there's a lot of artists that were very popular in the 90s that maybe aren't as popular now, that are maybe, yeah, I remember like meeting some people at Comic Cons, and I could tell like they're still hustling, and I was like, I don't necessarily want to be hustling that hard as I get older. Like I'd like to be able to have a career that's like relatively stable, you know, and I can keep publishing and I can kind of be the master of my own domain. Where that seemed like that was mostly happening for writers, but I didn't just want to write. So I found that it seemed like the people that seemed to have the healthiest careers in comics were the people that wrote and drew their own stuff. Scotty Young, Paul Pope, let's see, oh my gosh, I can't just name two people. Jeff Smith. They, you know, maybe they weren't necessarily the superstars. Oh, Scotty Young. They are superstars, but it's not like, you know how like, you know, you have a writer that's like really, really hot, and then like not so hot, and then, you know, and there's this kind of like roller coaster ride in comics. I kind of wanted to just like be chill and just kind of keep going at medium speed and not burn out. And it seemed like all the writer artists, that's what they were doing. So that's kind of the career path that I wanted for myself, and it seemed like the best way to get there was to write and draw my own stories. So Extremity was born. And you know, I started doing it with Space Mullet, so it's just Extremity was the next logical step, and I haven't really looked back since.
Let's talk about Wonder Woman Dead Earth, because that was my exposure to you.
Sure.
And it was, I just like the covers. Okay, I gotta be vulgar for a minute. There's this one, and I'm gonna do the overlay, you know, in post, but there's one like image where it looks like she's coming out like a vagina. Was that on purpose? Or
which issue are you talking about? Oh, okay, yeah. I can see that. I can 100% see that.
Can you see it?
I can see it. I can see it.
Okay.
I have to address the fact that like a lot of monster designs have a tendency to look, you know, it's pretty easy to fall into designs kind of looking
feminine,
like genitals or you know, of both sexes, you know.
Oh, okay.
It just is the way it is with monster design, and I sometimes you just gotta lean in. But when I did issue 1, the issue 1 cover, if you have issue 1,
I have all three right here.
Yeah. Okay. So issue 1, I designed there was a big monster in the background, and the mouth had like so that mouth used to go down. It used to be like actually open, like all the way down, and DC was like, no, it looks too much like a vagina, you have to change it.
Oh, so they even thought so at a certain. Okay, so I'm not crazy.
Yeah, so they thought it looked too much like a vagina during issue 1. So, you know, I guess I don't know. Maybe I have some sort of secret agenda.
Dead Earth, the artwork just struck me, and that's what made me want to buy the Black Label. Even though they're like annoying, I don't like the size, but sure. I thought it was cool. How did you get that gig? And was Wonder Woman Dead Earth your pitch?
Wonder Woman Dead Earth was my pitch. The editor reached out to me. His name was Andy Curry, super cool dude. He was, I don't remember if he was working in specifically Black Label at the time, but he reached out and said, would you like to pitch a Black Label book for DC? We'd love to see what you come up with. And I was like, sure, let me think about it. And I came back and I pitched him a few ideas that were like too indie, like like Dial H for Hero, and like a Pa Kent story with like no superheroes in it at all. And he was like, we're thinking more kind of like your take on an A-list character, like the top three, so we can like I can like try and sell it, to the higher ups. And I was like, okay. So I was like, give me another week to think about it. I did, and I kind of came up with like if King Conan was Wonder Woman kind of vibe, and that's how we got Dead Earth, and that was kind of what I pitched to Andy, and he pitched it to the higher ups, and they liked it a lot, and they said, let's do it. So the rest is history.
So far, it's the only complete story that you've written for DC. You mentioned originally to Mark at San Diego Comic-Con that originally pitching The Moon is Following Us as a Superman story. Do you plan on telling another story featuring a classic DC hero anytime in the near future?
So The Moon is Following Us isn't a recycled Superman story. It is it's our own story that I wrote after DC said no to my Superman story.
Got it.
Yeah. So, because I still have that Superman story in my back pocket, but we haven't found a good place for it in the DC line to exist yet. Me and DC. So hopefully someday it will happen. No promises, but it's still in my head, and I would really love to share it with the world someday.
I was wondering how The Moon is Following Us would have became a Superman story. I was trying to find that out.
He's trying to find how it would line up. After DC said no, I just totally pivoted. I just like went the opposite direction. I was like, okay, well, I don't have to operate in any sort of like DC constraints. Let me just open up my mind a little more and have fun with some new concepts that maybe wouldn't necessarily fit in a DC comic for sure. So that's how it's kind of cool, because if DC had said yes, then The Moon is Following Us wouldn't have existed.
So now let's talk a little bit about the other side. Beta Ray Bill, Art and Star.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you made this pitch as well, and if not, how did you get that job? Beta Ray Bill has its own cult following, so he's an exciting character to work on.
It started by me basically cold calling a Marvel editor, asking them, hey, can I do this? Can I do Beta Ray Bill comic? And he was like, Beta Ray Bill, I don't think will sell. And I was like, oh shoot, okay. And so he said, but we'll think about it and we'll try and make it happen. Then they were like, what about I don't remember when exactly. It was C2E2, I think 2019, when DC CB Cebulski, am I saying his name right? He came up to my table at Marvel, and he's like, we love what you're doing. We would love to have you, be part of Marvel. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. And he's like, what do you want to do? And this is after Will Moss, the editor at Marvel, said, hey, I really want to do a Beta Ray Bill book with you, but I just don't think Beta Ray Bill's going to sell. And this is, I think, maybe a year ago, maybe like sometime in 2018. I can't remember. And so CB comes up to my table, C2E2, we're hanging out. What do you want to do at Marvel? And I was like, Beta Ray Bill, immediately. And I think he might have been a little surprised, because I think maybe he was thinking I would say Spider-Man or Wolverine, which I love those characters, but they're no Beta Ray Bill. And I just, it's the only thing I wanted to do. And he's like, well, okay. And so, but to his credit, he made it happen. And we were going back and forth. I was going back and forth with Marvel. At the same time, I was going back and forth to DC, and I had to choose between Beta Ray Bill at Marvel or Wonder Woman Dead Earth at DC. And so I chose Wonder Woman. It just felt like, it's like Wonder Woman. She's like the bronze of the whole DC universe, whereas Beta Ray Bill does not even get on the podium. I just like, numbers are numbers, let's be real. So I would have been very happy to work on Beta Ray Bill. But so I basically turned down Marvel and said, hey, I have to do this Wonder Woman book. And I thought, I was like, oh geez, I hope I didn't burn a bridge, So Wonder Woman came out, and then it was so well received that I actually then called up Marvel again. And I was like, hey, as Wonder Woman was wrapping, this is like the summer of the pandemic, summer 2020. I was like, hey, Marvel, you want to do that Beta Ray Bill book? And they're like, yes, we still want to do it. So that was that. And I was very happy to do it. I really enjoyed working on Beta Ray Bill, and it good. It got me through the pandemic. I was going to do a power bomb right after Wonder Woman, but I was like, you know what? It might not be the worst thing in the world to work for the man for another year as we go into 2021. And it was good. It was a good thing because it allowed the comics market to kind of recover and be a little more stable coming out of the pandemic. And the original art sold really well, which helped me with a down payment on a house here in Chicago, which I'm very thankful for. And I don't know if it would have happened, the other way around, going from Wonder Woman into do a power bomb. So things seem to have worked out, and I'm very happy I worked on Beta Ray Bill. It's one of my favorite books I've ever done. I read it now, and I'm like, oh, this is actually really good.
You gave me a segue here. Your bibliography is largely independent. A multiple Eisner Award winner. You can seems like you could tell original stories for the rest of your career. You're a rising star. You're a star that's risen. You are him right now, man. You're killing it.
Oh, dude,
okay?
You killed me.
All right. Is there a desire to even want to tell ongoing stories for the big two? Like, is that even a thing now these days?
I mean, I'm never gonna say never. I'll put it this way, like working on stories for the big two is kind of like a vacation because I don't have any ownership over the characters. So like, it's easier for me to walk away at the end of the day. It's easier for me to sleep at night. When I work on my creator-owned stuff, it's all me. There's nothing I can hide behind. There's no brand, there's no logo, there's no company. It's just I'm out there kind of naked in the desert, I'm like, hey, I'm like, if you like what you see, you like what you see. If you don't, you gotta turn away, and I'm gonna I'm gonna die of thirst. This is a terrible analogy, but at Marvel, there's this kind of Marvel and DC and Transformers. There's an element of safety. Maybe it's just in my own imagination, but it's just easier for me to approach it just as a job, and a fun job at that. And there are creative decisions that that are made for me because I don't own the property, and it's easier to let those things go because I don't own Beta Ray Bill, and it's just fun. It's just really fun. So it's not as fulfilling as working on something like Do a Power Bomb or Moon is Following Us, where it's all kind of me and a partner's vision that we're executing. We're like making it happen, and if people receive it well, it's the best feeling in the world. Better, honestly, than if somebody receives something well, like Wonder Woman, where again, that brand, the company, and the logo, it gets in the way of what I would consider to be like a full and true vision, whatever, like the artist thing. Right. So it works both ways, and it's great when I make something on my own without Marvel and DC, and I feel good about it. But oftentimes, what ends up happening is there's just a trade-off, and it's good to kind of paddle on one stream for a while and go over and I'm super exhilarated when I paddle through rapids, but I'm like really tired at the end. I'm not burned out, I'm just tired. Whereas maybe I'm paddling through the Marvel and DC world, it's a babbling brook, and like it's just a little more chill, and I'm a little more ready to go back into the crazy like rapids of Image Comics where you're just on your own. That's a long answer to a simple question, but there you go.
Totally get it though. Totally get it though.
Yeah, man.
Good thing we love both. Either way it goes, we love both of your works.
Yeah,
independent and
so
then for
glad.
the big two.
Yeah, and it's really fun. People have, for the vast majority of my readers, have just rolled right into it. Like when people heard I was working on Wonder Woman, they're like, I'm gonna buy it. Which is the best response I can get.
We're gonna ask this one. Were there any real life wrestlers that inspired your designs for Do a Power Bomb?
On the ladies' side, it was a lot of the All Japan women's wrestling from the 90s, if you guys know about that. Like Aja Kong and Manami Toyota, you know, the famous ones. And for other wrestlers, you know, the Cobra Sun is obviously the other big one. It was a little bit of Hayabusa and a little bit of, you know, Jushin Thunder Liger. Like a lot of Japanese wrestlers, not so much American, and not even so much, you know, Lucha Libre wrestlers. It was more of kind of a shout out to the kind of FMW days of, you know, 90s and early 2000s Japanese pro wrestling. So that's kind of where Cobra Sun originated. And originally, Cobra Sun did not have a mask. His face was, he had like he had a mask, but it just covered his eyes and the side of his face, you know. You could see like his mouth, and the story changed. I changed it so that Cobra Sun, spoiler alert, ... is Lona Steel Rose's actual father. When that became a story beat, I had to cover his entire face, and that's why I chose the full covering for him, so that Lona wouldn't. It would be a little more believable that Lona would know that that's her dad. Even though there is a bit of a a Clark Kent element to a story of a wrestler who takes his mask off, and the daughter didn't know it was her dad all along. But it's comic books and fiction, and people accept a lot, which is the best.
All right, so when Image announced that you were doing Transformers, man, many original art collectors were chomping at the bits to get their hands on some Daniel Warren Johnson Transformers. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, dude.
Does the art collecting scene impact your art decisions in any way? Like is it like, oh, this would be something dope they will like, or try to minimize boring pages so you can sell them, stuff like that?
I mean, yes and no. When I'm making stories, when I'm like writing stories, I'm actively not thinking about collectors or even readers. Honestly, I'm thinking about myself and what I want to see in either the story or what I want to draw. I want something that's challenging, and personally, like if there's not something challenging and exciting for me to draw on a page on any day, I don't want to actually draw it. It's hard for me to get through, because I want to feel like I conquered some sort of small mountain each day. That's important for me to feel fulfilled as an artist. And that's been the way that I've worked since not a single person cared about my original art. I've always tried to find like at least one panel on a page where I feel like people could point to that and say, hey, that's really special. He really worked hard on that. And I've always been kind of this weird, like, anti-digital creator. I tried to work digitally on EVE Online True Stories, that first gig I was telling you guys about.
Right.
But I just was Control-Alt-Zing everything. I was like, I couldn't get anything done. I wasted a whole day trying to figure out Manga Studio, and I was like, screw it, this isn't actually faster. This is just making my life more complicated. So since then, I've just been traditional, and I've never looked back. And I make decisions because I have to stick to certain decisions because I'm traditional. Like, I can't go back. So there are things that I do that make sure that I'm not wasting my time, that I'm enjoying the process. And also, I like to have like a finished product in front of me, like on the desk at the end of the day. So at like 6 p.m., the page that I have in front of me, like I don't have to go into Photoshop and like clean up or like edit or resize. Like if something needs to get changed, it changes on the board. And when I scan it, I'm just basically doing some levels and I'm off. I upload it. So that's important to me. It just feels, and this is the way I've always been. Again, before anybody really cared, and I can't break the habit. It would be a lot faster to just, hey, this person's face is a little too big. I'll just fix this in Photoshop. No, bro. There's a reason I got my white out right here. It's like literally the closest thing to me on the desk.
And speaking of art process, let's talk about your longtime collaborator, Mike Spicer.
Oh, Mike. Yep.
Tell us what kind of quality does Mike bring to your artwork?
Well, he's obviously, this goes without saying, but he's an amazing colorist. Everybody knows it. And he elevates my lines and he makes things a little more readable. And another big thing is I do not give this guy color palettes. Like when I send him pages, I'm basically like, have a good day. The only thing he gets from me is a script. He asks for the script, which of course I send to him whenever he gets a new issue of anything. And, in like 3 weeks, I have these amazing colored pages in my inbox that are flawless, basically. The only thing I send to it, like at the beginning of a project, I'll send him like a loosely watercolored, like character sheet. So he just knows the just color palette of the actual characters and what they look like. And then usually issue 1, we might like iron out some kinks, like, oh, their armor is actually should be like a little bit more of a teal blue or whatever, right? After that, we're off to the races. I mean, it's crazy. He makes my life so easy, and I cannot ask for anything better than a colorist, honestly. He looks amazing. My life's easy. He's a great dude. He works really hard, and I am very thankful to have found him. My professional life would not be the same without his colors on top of my line art. So, Mike, if you ever listen to this, dude, thank you, bro.
Speaking about collaboration, let's talk about The Moon is Following Us.
Sure.
Story you're doing with fellow artist Riley Rossmo. You're normally a 2-man operation with Mike Spicer. What spawned the collaboration with Riley Rossmo?
Well, I've been very close friends with Riley since 2015. We just get along really well. We love talking. We're really good at like shooting the breeze. He's just a great hang, and we feel the same way about a lot of different things in the world. So we just get along really well, and we talk every day on Discord. So eventually, after a few, this is maybe 3.5 years ago, he was like, look, I know that you got your own thing going, you do your own thing, but if you ever maybe think about writing for somebody else, I think I'd really like to maybe do a story together. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. I'd love to do a story with you. Let's think on it. Let's keep it in mind, and we'll, you never know. Like I remember being super busy at the time, so I couldn't commit to anything, and he was busy too. And we just kind of had it in the back of our minds, and he was in between gigs at DC at the time, and that's when we pitched the Superman thing, and they said no, and I was like, well, now we really got to do something together, because I had an itch that I kind of chased after, and let's just do our own thing. And Riley had done a lot of work for DC for a lot of years. He did the Image thing back in the day. There were some tough years for everybody during that time. I know, because the creators that were in comics at the time tell me about it, and I'm like, ooh. So he's been doing comics for a long time, longer than me, and it's just been a long time since he's done the Image thing, where you're just kind of, again, on your own financially and PR wise, you're just kind of solo coasting. And so he was like, I think I'm ready for that challenge again, and I think I want to do it. And I told him the idea I had for Moon is Following Us, and we both have kids. His daughter is a little older than mine. My daughter is 6 years old, and I have a son too, who's 2. And he loved it so much, he just started drawing conceptual sketches that day, the day I told him about the story. He sent him the next day, and he was like, what do you think? And I was like, well, we're doing this book together. I'll start writing issue 1. Which takes a lot of gusto, honestly. I like to really know kind of what I'm writing before I really start writing it, and I just because we had to get started, because like, you know, Riley's kind of waiting for the book to come out to get paid. So I'm like, hey, you got to feed your fam. So let's get this gravy train rolling. You know, it's a little bit of this, like, is this it's gonna happen? Like, am I gonna fail? That happens every project, but people seem to be resonating with it well, and I'm so glad that it's Riley who's with me on the journey, because not only is he an incredible collaborator and an incredible talent, but he's also one of my closest friends. So
we're on our very last question, Dan.
Okay.
Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you want the fans to know about? Any upcoming projects? Any special appearances? I know issue 2 of The Moon is Following Us just came out today.
Or what you're drawing right now? Can we see what you?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm on a deadline.
Or is it top secret?
It is. I'm actually doing a GI Joe cover.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what issue it's for, but I don't think I'm allowed to show it.
Let's just get a little corner.
I can show you a corner.
A little flash.
All right, there we go.
That's it. A little peep show right there.
Some foliage. There you go. Only here on your show.
There it is.
I'm looking through my drawer, see if I have anything cool. I'll show you something cool. This is a secret, bro.
There we go.
Oh, Starscream, I know my favorite man, Starscream.
I love that. I love.
Yeah, there you go.
That.
There's a little secret.
All right.
I don't know what I don't know what that's for. I just, you know, maybe I drew it for fun. Who knows? Who knows?
So is there anything you would like your fans to know about? Anything to pick up? The Moon is following us. That's what you're working on right now.
Yep.
Is there anything else?
So I'm still writing Transformers with Jorge Corona, who is doing an incredible job, and with Mike Spicer on colors on Jorge, which is fantastic. He's just coloring Jorge just as good as he colors me. I'm really proud of the book. I feel like I'm writing it pretty darn well. I'm like really happy about it. You know, I'm not as confident. I don't know if I come off confident, but you know, people
like it.
Hey, thank you. So Transformers is still coming out. Having a great time with that. Check that out. And then I have a YouTube channel actually that I would love to just plug really fast.
Do it.
Where I just, you know, every Friday I go live. And
Fridays with D-Dubs.
Friday with D-Dubs, yep. And I just draw. Like, I just have the camera down and on my desk, and we rock and roll, and I basically answer no questions, and it's like super chill. Like, I don't like the YouTube game. Like, I just can't. My brain doesn't work that way. I get stressed out. So I don't. I just am like, hey, we're here. Let's have a good day. And we just start drawing. So I'm not sure if that's a good sell, but that's what happens every Friday if you like comics and if you like to draw or you like to watch people draw. People have told me that it's very calming for them, and multiple people have told me it got them through the pandemic. So I'm going to tell you that if you're feeling stressed out, come on Fridays, just watch me struggle with the drawing and, you know, watch me erase a lot.
and the channel, was it just Daniel Warren Johnson?
Yeah, if you look up just like Daniel Warren Johnson on YouTube, or even if you just Google my name, you're going to find my channel.
Word. Well, hey, D-Dub, man, thank you so much. This has been a great interview. You always have a home here, right here on the Six Slayer station. So thank you once again.
Thanks for so I didn't ask for permission, but thank you for being cool while I draw on this intense deadline on this cover.
It's all right. It's all right.
I thought it was cool.
You're gonna see when this cover drops, you're gonna see it on the shelf. Be like, he was drawing that when I did the interview.
We saw the foliage.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the like button. This is Six Slayers. I'm Mike, speaking for Mark and Daniel Warren Johnson. We are out.
Go Dodgers. Go Dodgers.
Six Slayers.